talking to this young man about 2 days ago, and he was telling me about the struggles he had, like his addictions that he was dealing with, as the stuff that's going on at home. And I see this young man talking, and as he talks and talks, I'm realizing that he's just identifying with his problems on a very deep level. It was to the point where he was saying, I am this, I am this. He was labeling himself with different things and identifying with his struggles so much to the point where it became his identity. He took on a victim mindset. And I was over here listening to him, understanding, thinking to myself, this identity, I talked about shifting your identity a long time ago. It all starts with your mind, the way that you decide to change. The external, the habits, the habits are just external. They're just a reflection of who you are. So when I said the other time, I said, you identify with this so much. You have convinced yourself that you are so much of a victim that you have completely took out the other aspect of yourself that are good. You focus on everything that's bad. You made yourself think that your addictions define you. The addictions that he had were quite severe, but it doesn't mean it defines him as a young man. It defines his destiny, defines who he is. I think this is one thing I want to talk about in this video, which is identifying with your struggles, identifying with the bad things that's happening in your life, just ends up giving them more power. Whatever you give energy to, it feeds on it. Your energy is very contagious. If you feed something your energy, it will grow. That's how life works. If you focus on the video game, you'll get better at the video game. If you focus on communicating with this person, you'll get better with communicating with this person. Whatever that you choose to do, life is very vague, but if you choose to put your energy in something in life, it is gonna grow. That is not a rule that anyone can argue with. Whatever you pour energy to will simply grow. It is the same thing with your struggles. If you're sitting there identifying with your struggles so much, pouring more and more into them, you're just gonna end up making them worse. You're gonna end up making it a very big part of your identity. I mean, this is one thing that I talk about when I had micro addiction 5 years ago. One thing that I did right after a certain period of time, I started to learn to give that less power. A lot of the time, your mental capacity gives something more power than it should have, like the words of other people. The words of other people shouldn't have that much power, but you decide to give it the power, and it affects you because you decided to give it that power. You poured energy into those words. You pour energy into your words. So when you sit there and talk about your struggles, all the addictions you have, and you identify with them on such a heavy level, to the point where they become a part of your identity, they become who you are. Having an addiction or a struggle or a problem, it doesn't define who you are. It's just the extension, it's a part of your life. Everyone has a problem, something that they're dealing with, an issue that they're struggling with. That doesn't mean that issue is simply who you are. That's not your identity. That's not who you are. But a lot of people feel comfort, especially that young man. He felt a lot of comfort pouring his identity into that issue. It's like his whole life is that issue. And I guess I just wanted to come here and talk to many of you watching this video that might be struggling with this, about not giving your struggles such power. Is realizing that you can work on your struggles, you can work on your problems, you can work on your addictions and slowly fix them, but you start by disconnecting from them. You start from pouring less energy into those problems and pouring more energy into other things. This is one thing that I don't see a lot of people talking about, but relating to your struggles on that deep of a level will just breed more problems. Now, you might be thinking how I go on about fixing this. I think there's many ways to fix this, but I mean, the simple way that I did it is I started worrying less about those things. I started giving them less power. Even though I might be struggling with this addiction, for example, I would simply give it less power. I would acknowledge it less, I would think about it less, and I would pour my energy into other activities that will actually help me level up and quite positive for my mental well-being. But that started with me disconnecting from the bad habits. I started taking my ego out of the things and identifying with the bad people. Because a lot of the time when you have the bad habits, it also is very tempting because your friends have those same bad habits. And you end up relating to other people on a bigger scale. Your ego ends up attaching itself to something, other people that are in the same boat. And I think that could be very toxic because you're seeking to be validated. You're seeking to be accepted by the people around you, but you're doing it through you're doing it through a bad habits. You're identifying with the bad things. There is things you can identify with that are very positive. Every human feels a need to identify with something, whether it is who they are, their backstory, their religion. If you have the need to identify with something, I urge you that you replace it with something positive. There is way better things to identify with than your addictions and struggle. Stop giving your addictions and struggles power. That is the lesson of this video. Start identifying start identifying with things that will help you in life, pouring energy into things that will grow and teach you in life. And that is a lesson I wanted to implant in you in this video. I hope this helped.